Now. So when
Lighting
you're
in here
ready,
is ever abysmal.
that's totally fine. Setting up my meeting. So I'm going to be watching on the YouTube live as well. And then hopefully everybody can jump in, and we'll make it really clear in today's meeting, we're now live, that we feel that this video and this kind of setup is something that is very important for everybody to discuss. Hello, everybody. This is the new thing that we're doing here on this channel. This is a live stream Zoom meeting with the rest of the Transport Evolved crew. Say hello, Erin.
Hello.
Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
And hello, me, obviously. For those who don't know, we are the main team that makes Transport Evolved do its thing, and we've been discussing a problem that has been happening in the electric vehicle world, and it strikes me that the issue that we are facing right now is a matter of affordability. And it's something that not everybody is talking about in the electric vehicle world. Mm-hmm. And we had a production meeting earlier today, Kate, Erin, and myself, and we were talking about affordability for electric vehicles and how we discuss affordability in the electric vehicle world. Now, the problem with that is that we are living in a little bubble. And I was talking to Erin and Kate this morning during a production meeting, and I was saying, hey guys, do you have any ideas on how we can make people understand how electric vehicles are being presented and being marketed versus how a lot of people in the industry actually see? And I was kind of batting ideas around for a script and ended up saying, you know what, we should just have a live discussion. Yeah. So we have a live discussion. We have a chat room here, which I'm going to pop out in the corner so I can see what's going on. I'm going to relay that chat to everybody here. So hello, everybody watching. This is a test drive of a new Zoom setup. I know we've got the Zoom logo in the bottom, but this is potentially a way that we're going to do future videos. So let's start with the thing that got me going, the thing that got me not blood boiling, but the thing that just made me go, oh, this is ridiculous. As those of you know, we had the new Chevrolet Bolt EV launched at the weekend, and the Bolt EUV. Now, the Bolt EV is just a mid-cycle refresh. It's not a brand new car. It's just basically cosmetic surgery. It's had a boob job, whichever way you want to look at it. Erin, what's your reaction to the design of that new car?
I was actually very ecstatic when you showed me the kind of preview that Chevrolet and Disney actually put together. And I mean, it's clear that they really want to push this vehicle as not just being for people that are looking for luxury, but for people that are looking to have a vehicle that will do it all. It's you know, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be a catch-all, you know? It's not supposed to be a fancy, fast muscle machine. It's supposed to be something that can get your family around. And I think that's really important, especially in the EV sector, because it's full of, you know, listen, I love a fast EV. They're so fun to drive in when they go, you know, just 0 to 60, like, you know. But I think it's important to think about the average American family and the average consumer. And yeah, it's clear that Chevy was thinking about that when they were coming out with the EUV.
Yeah, and obviously the refresh of the Bolt as well. Kate, what was your initial gut reaction? Because you're like me, you like traditional car designs.
Yeah, and I think they've moved in a more traditional direction with it. I mean, it's still definitely an EV. It still definitely has a lot of those EV design notes, but they've made it a little bit more conventional. Certainly the interior feels a much more kind of comfortable place. It's kind of like the Niro. It feels like a typical car. Whereas the first generation of the Bolt, I really like it, but it definitely says, look, I'm all fancy new tech. Whereas this is much closer to kind of look, you'll get in this and you'll know how to drive it, which I think is really important in getting consumers who aren't, I want an EV. They're just like, oh, well, I want to try an EV.
It seems
it's a nice, friendly kind of thing. And I think the styling, I really like the styling. It is a little bit sharper than the old Bolt, I think.
I prefer the interior to the exterior, I'm going to admit. If I could have the old front end with the interior of the new version of the Bolt, I'd be happy. But Erin, you were going to say something.
It seems that that's something that Chevy keeps on doing, which is making something that looks really space agey and kind of strange at first, and then kind of taking a step back, you know, with their EV designs, because that was a lot of people's initial reaction about the first gen Volt. Is, you know, the fun little paddle shifter that looks like you're going to go into warp speed, you know, and all the other kind of design notes that are just really unconventional. And, you know, us nerds really like those unconventional notes, but when you're, you know, Chevy's not trying to aim it at us nerds, it's trying to, you know, hook a wider audience. And I think that's important for us to kind of acknowledge.
All right. So the big thing obviously is that the new Bolt, the refreshed Bolt and the Bolt EUV have a lower sticker price. The Bolt EV is now starting from, I think it was just under $32,000.
Yeah.
Before, but that included mandatory destination charge. It does not include any local incentives. Obviously, if you're watching this outside of the US and Canada, I'm sorry. The Bolt and the Bolt EUV, it's going to be Mexico, it's going to be Canada, it's going to be the US, it's going to be, I believe it's going to be some Central American countries, maybe, obviously Korea and a few other countries, but it's not going to be a right-hand drive car. There's no plans for that. Obviously, GM has pretty much pulled out of Europe now. But this is a vehicle that is a lot cheaper than it was. And a lot of people have been hammering GM this week about this, and it's primarily from a certain subset of people who we're not going to mention by name, but I am going to bring in a conversation that somebody had this week. And the reason why we're having this Zoom call is because it's hard to put these feelings into a single blog that's scripted without people accusing me of being biased. We all have confirmation bias. We all have implicit bias one way or another. We all own a plug-in car. We all own a plug-in car and have driven them for many years. Erin is the newest of the plug-in owners. But I think she is converted based on some of her social media posts that she's been posting, both on her official electric account, and she has another account which I'm not going to share, but she has another account. I've been following her on both for many years, and she's doing it on both accounts. But people were saying, so the general consensus is this is a boring car. It charges slowly. We addressed charging in the video yesterday. I'm not going to relitigate that, as it were. But people were saying, oh, for the money, it sucks. The design is terrible. We've already talked about the design. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and design is subjective, right? What works for one person doesn't work for another. You only have to look at our respective offices behind us to see that. How different we all are. Now, hand on heart, if I could have Kate's office, I'd be pretty happy. If I could have Erin's office, I'd be pretty happy. My office is a mess. But when it comes to pricing, what we are forgetting in the electric vehicle world, and we're insulating ourselves in this bubble, is that not everybody can afford a really expensive car. And we are bashing on again and again and again. And it seems terribly two-faced and terribly hypocritical for car companies to be making cars that we, the plug-in vehicle world, have been asking for years, to only then turn around and say, oh, it's not fast enough, it's too expensive, it doesn't go far enough. And if you kind of look with a more kind of holistic view, this is a vehicle that's really going to sell. It's significantly cheaper than the previous model year car. And $32,000 is expensive, right, Kate, for a car? You've been looking at some statistics.
Yeah, I mean, the it's always very difficult to find anything other than the average used price for a car, which is a stupid measure because you only need a few people buying some top of the line vehicles to completely skew your average. So the median used price, I think I found, was about 33,000. I think that was last year's as well. And I only have one source for this. I don't even have full access to it. So I can't swear to that, but it sounds kind of about right based on what I saw a couple of years ago.
Now, a couple of years ago, I would have said 33 sounded about right. Somebody in a Twitter argument with me earlier on today said, yes, but the average new price of a car is $40,000. So everybody can afford to buy insert name of car here. We can all guess which car it was. And my gut reaction was, are we talking mean modal? Are we talking something else? There are four different averages, right? Mathematically. I can't remember them all. Mean, modal,
median. Mean, modal, median.
And I can't remember the last one.
Yeah, no, I can't
range.
remember. It's a long time.
Oh, range is different. Range is different. It gives you a kind of a thing. Anyway, so median, for those who don't know, I feel I have to kind of reiterate this. Median is you add up all the values of all the figures you have, and then you divide it by 2, and that's your value. So if somebody is buying, $250,000 sports cars, and unfortunately, in the world of 2018, 2019, 2020, where income inequality has risen at an astonishing rate, and I don't think it's just an American thing. I think it's globally. The rich have got richer and the poor have got poorer. Plus, you've got people making lots of money from the social media influencer crowd who are getting rich quick and spending that money quickly. People are going out and buying $250,000 Ferraris, Maseratis, luxury sports car salespeople can't keep the cars in their showrooms. They just can't.
If you can afford that, then good for you. And congratulations, But I think something we need to realize is that, as you're leading on to, is that a lot of people can't get to that quite yet because of where we are right now economically.
Yeah, I mean, the resources I found suggest you should not spend more than half of your income on it, and the median income is $60,000 in the US. So if you're spending half of your income, which is a crazy amount to be spending every month on a car, you can't really buy something that costs more than $30,000.
Right. And so the thing that got me really frustrated earlier was someone going, oh, but it's only $6,000 difference to go from this car to this car. And I'm like, do you realize that $6,000 is an insane amount of money for most people?
It's, it's just 6,000 could make or break someone's bank account right now. It could it could mean the difference between having a house or being homeless. And if you're thinking of buying a car and you're in that situation, maybe now is not the good time to buy a car. But I think it's just important, like, you were saying, is that's a lot of money. Yeah. That is a lot of money to the average American.
And not always is it that people want to buy a car. Like, I have discussions with people all the time who are like, well, my car is kind of on its last legs, and I've come to this point where I really need to replace it. But, a lot of people talk to me about EVs, and they're like, I'd like to buy an EV. What can I find that's in my price range? And it's often the case that, well, you might get a knackered old Leaf in your price range. Yeah. That's kind of where your price range is at. You can look at, plug-in hybrids as a reasonable option for you, but a lot of people who are interested in this, they just can't stump up that cash, and particularly not because they've suddenly found that their 8-10-year-old car has reached the end of its life and they're faced with, oh, I'm going to have to spend $4,000 for they're going to have to strip the engine down and replace the head gasket, and this is gone, and this is gone, and this is gone, because it's just reached the end of its lifespan. Or I've got maybe $5,000 to spend on a car.
Yeah. I've got to explain something for the chat room, and we've got 10 minutes left. We're tying this to a 10-minute remaining chat because my partner has to have a meeting in 10 minutes. But someone was asking what knackered means. Knackered is a British slang term. It basically means it's broken, it's dead, it's not functioning properly.
Tired.
It's
tired.
Exhausted. It comes from the original term, the knackerman, which was somebody who would go around the farms and basically dispose of very old farm animals or large animals
Usually
that were no longer fit for purpose.
Horses that could no longer plough the field.
Or weren't racing or whatever. But I want to drill down here because those who are saying, oh, we've seen it in the chat already. People are going, oh, but it's not half of your annual salary because you're spreading it out over 5 years. Affordability also comes in with the requirement that you have to be able to afford a loan if you're buying this thing outright. And secondly, when you're talking about federal tax incentives in the US, again, similar programs exist around the world, you have to be eligible to make use of those tax rebates. You have to earn enough money in that year that your liability is equal to, or at least a fraction of, what the tax credit would be. So if you're earning $30,000 a year, you aren't going to make enough money to have a tax bill that is equivalent to the discount that is offered by the federal tax incentives. This is why I don't like federal tax incentives, because it rewards the rich. They should be a credit that you get when you buy the vehicle. And so now we are looking at what we are talking about in regards of EV purchase prices. We're talking about the Bolt EV and the Bolt EUV being affordable cars. The US government is currently working on bringing back federal incentives for car companies who had exceeded the $250,000 limit that was previously in place, which means that the Chevy Bolt and the Bolt EUV, as well as any Teslas, will come back under the fold. And a friend of mine in the industry said this morning, don't forget that while your average $25,000 purchase, someone who's buying a $25,000 or $30,000 car doesn't make enough money to actually make that credit work for them, the leasing companies can claim that tax credit on your behalf. That means that $32,000 Bolt suddenly becomes $7,000 less expensive for your lease program, which means you're effectively leasing a $25,000 car rather than a $32,000 car. And that is the real thing here. And I think that's why GM priced it at that point. And then we have to look, what do you reckon the most popular cars last year that were cars, not pickup trucks? Erin, this is for you. How much were the top cars starting prices last year? So of the cars that were in the top 10 last year, in terms of popularity in the US, we're talking 500,000-ish sales and, $250,000 to $500,000. What do you reckon their starting prices were? Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to guess like 35. I'm going to say 35.
They all start between $20,000 and $30,000.
That's good. That's excellent.
That is.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So why are we still using the $40,000 average price of a new car? Because it's completely off.
It's the blinders. You got blinders.
It's the blinders. But what's one thing that's interesting to me, and it might be just because I'm not living in Britain anymore or living in Europe, but the reaction to the MG electric vehicles that have come out there has been, as far as I can tell, universally pretty positive. They're not enormous range. They are Chinese made. They are not enormously well spec'd, but they are a much more affordable vehicle. And what I've seen is mainly positivity. And I'm interested, and I might, like I say, I might just be not in the loop anymore, but I'm interested as to why that differs so much to the response we're seeing right now to the GM announcements for the EUV and the Bolt refresh.
It's I don't know, Erin, you're the Native American. Can you tell us?
I mean, one thing that I've seen mostly about the Bolt that people are complaining about is, of course, how it's like a cheap car, you know, or people are saying it's cheap. It's not, like the one we're not going to mention. But I mean, I think something that's important to think about is what most people think the market is kind of shifting towards as far as cars. Like, a lot of Americans are not going towards compact cars, or their ideal car is not going to be like a compact, small kind of thing that gets like, 100 miles of range or something like that. Most Americans are going to want bigger, better, longer, faster kind of stuff, So obviously, I think Chevy did a good thing by going with an EUV, having it's not an SUV, but
it's the faux crossover.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that was a good move for them. And I don't know. I find it very strange that a lot of people are so pushing against it, but I think it's just because they're running out of things to push against at this point. It feels almost like because they're meeting some of these market demands, which are a fully electric SUV. It's not SUV.
It's prejudice at this point, Erin.
Yeah.
It is prejudice, and it's prejudice which is why I talked about a bubble at the top.
Mm-hmm.
We are pushing people. We EV owners are living in a bubble. Most of us, not all of us, most of us are pretty well educated, middle class, of a certain age. Erin, you are right at the young end of it.
Yeah.
And we've got maybe a little bit of extra cash that we're willing to invest in whatever car suits our needs. And the majority of the people who are speaking on Twitter, who are social media influencers, who have YouTube channels, who have the time to take out and work on these, are generally people who are quite happy to drop $100,000 on the latest new hotness so that they can make money on their channel. I refuse to do that because I'm not that person. And the
really
people
quick,
in the sorry, carry on.
That's okay. Just really quick, I just want to mention, I live with 3 people right now, and I've talked to, ever since I got my Volt, I've been talking to them about the great incentives that, are in my state and stuff like that. And I've been saying, hey, why don't you get a hybrid at least, a hybrid? And they're like, well, we want to, but we can't right now. And they make more than I do.
Right. And that's a married couple and a single person.
Yeah. And,
and they're all in the same place, right?
Yeah. We're they're all at they're like, for their age range, they have a really good income. And the cars they have right now are not their ideal cars. They only have those ones because they're affordable. They don't require a lot of parts. It's cheap. Yeah.
I want to kind of re-underscore that and say, look, we need to have this conversation of affordability. And people who go, oh yeah, but the cost of ownership, look at how easily this car, we all know which car we're talking about, costs less to own over the lifetime of the vehicle. And you turn around and go, I'm sorry, Erin, if someone had come to you and said to you, the Chevrolet Volt was going to save you, let's just pick a figure out of the air. I don't know if this is accurate or not. Let's say the Chevrolet Bolt, a Volt even, is going to save you $8,000 over the course of your time owning it.
That's great.
What would your immediate reaction had been if they then turned around and said, but it's going to cost you more up front?
I'm going to be like, I don't know if that's worth it at that point. It's not really. I think something that's important to think about is, of course, there's those savings on the back end, but it's that uphill battle getting to the top to where you can actually spend that money to have those savings at the end, you know?
Does your landlord not accept an IOU for, I will have saved this much in 5 years' time and you can have the rent check then?
I'm afraid not.
Was it Mr. McCorber in Great Expectations, Kate? I'm testing your English literature.
You are beyond my English literature. I did not read Great Expectations.
No, it wasn't Mr. McCorber. It was Mr. Somebody or other. One of the characters in Charles Dickens basically explained how you must balance books, and this little thing about if you're 1 shilling over or 1 pence over, you're unhappy, but if you're bang on, you spend as much as you earn, and everybody's happy. I'm sure someone will put that in the comments. But the reality is, for the majority of Americans, the majority of Europeans, the majority of citizens of Earth cannot do total cost of ownership calculations. Total cost of ownership is a gotcha for regular people. It is something that only wealthy people can afford to think about. If you are someone who goes, oh, look, it's going to save me this much money over the lifetime of the vehicle, the chances are you're probably someone who's not on the poverty line. You're probably somebody who could probably spend that extra money anyway. Hand on heart, I'm one of those people. We just got free solar panels for our house. And I think my wife's not coming in for her meeting, so she's probably doing it in the other room. So thank you, my wife, for doing that. The Kate I'm married to, not the Kate that's there.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I'm quite jealous of the solar panels, you know. That's great.
Which I was only able to do, right? Let's be completely honest about this. I got solar panels for free. How did I get solar panels for free? I remortgaged my house. I was able to get a house, buy that house 2 years ago, 2 years in, not even 2 years into the mortgage, go back to our mortgage company and go, we're paying 5%. How about we renegotiate that? And they dropped it down to 3%. The monthly savings from that mortgage is giving us solar panels on the roof, covering that loan cost of solar panels on the roof. That is very middle class thing to do, to be able to own a home, to be able to remortgage your home, to be able to then use that money, that saved money from your budget to spend on something else. I could have done that and bought something else, But I find it frustrating when people, and it always happens, it's always the same group of people. And we need to start calling them out on it, because it's so frustrating when people say, oh, this is disappointing. It doesn't do 300 miles per charge. Come on. This is disappointing. It doesn't have autonomous driving. Come on. This is disappointing. It only charges at 55 kilowatts. Well, yeah, okay, it's disappointing that the car only charges at 55 kilowatts, but DC quick charging is now standard. Yeah. And all of these other things. And it makes me sad. I'm just going to quickly look through some of the chats while you guys carry on. I don't know if there's anything that I've just said that you want to bounce off.
Well, I think one of the things that is interesting is that we get a lot of those comments about, you could buy an X instead for only so much more. But we also get a lot of comments that just quietly appear of, what I want is a car that is a car. It takes me from A to B and it's a plug-in, and that's all I want. I don't want, I don't want a fancy big screen. I don't want self-driving. I don't need that stuff. What I need is a basic car. And there, I mean, you're talking to someone who used to own a Yugo. So I do have a fairly utilitarian attitude to vehicles. But there definitely is a place in the market for something like that.
Yeah.
I've just got the Mr. McCorber quote. Thank you, Ronnie. He found it for me. Mr. McCorber, annual income, £20, annual expenditure, £19, 19 shillings and sixpence. Result, happiness. Annual income, £20, annual expenditure, £20, ought and 6. Result, misery. I knew that was Mr. McCorber, and I didn't trust myself. So there you go. Charles Dickens. Read more Charles Dickens. He was just such a subversive little sod. A lot of his books are so subversive and push for what today we would call social justice warrior. I love a lot of his stuff. All right, so how do we solve this? Because, already in this conversation, people are saying, oh, well, you can go to the used car market, you can do this, you can do that. Which brings its own problems in.
Trickle down is a myth. Trickle down is a myth.
Yeah.
And I hear people in the automotive industry talk about trickle down as a way to get these features in, electric vehicles to the public, or to a more like affordable area, the trickle down of EVs. And that's a myth, I know a lot of people that, even if it's an older nice car, they don't have an older nice car. That's still a lot to maintain.
Yeah, I mean they're always expensive to get the parts for.
Yeah.
If you have a fancy car with fancy electronics, then you have a fancy car with fancy things that go wrong and cost you fancy amounts of money.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the repair costs for your BMW.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because on the face of it, your
BMW.
Yeah, on the face of it, your BMW is a premium car. My Bolt, my Leaf before it, were run-of-the-mill cars. So let's do a cost comparison.
Yeah. I mean, I can't exactly do a cost comparison because we looked at the i3 and we knew when we bought it, it was a premium car. We knew it was a BMW and that it would be expensive to fix. And we knew that they weren't very popular used, so they were relatively cheap. So we forked out for a used car warranty, which meant that the probably in the region of $3,000 or $4,000 worth of repairs that it's had since we got it have all been covered. And
fortunately,
yeah, I mean, if we hadn't have, then we've had the engine, we've had oxygen sensors repaired, we've had the DC rapid charging repaired, we've had like all these parts that have just gone wrong. And I mean, yes, technically we could have afforded that. I mean, we're in a very privileged position that we could have afforded it, but it certainly wouldn't have made me happy, and it certainly wouldn't have been easy. And we're building a house. That money is already earmarked for things like we would like some trim on this window, so it's not just bare plaster at the edges. So spending it on a car is not really in the plan.
It's not ideal.
Right. Another quote. This one from Kate Wolf. This is what Terry Pratchett observed in Guards. The poor pay more for shoes than the rich because the poor can't afford good shoes that can be repaired. And it's very true.
That's the Samuel Vine's theory of shoes, I believe.
Yeah. If you've never read any Terry Pratchett, another great British author, go check him out.
Erin,
but don't read them in order.
No.
Don't read them in order. Read them in the good books first, and then the other ones are okay. Sorry, Kate.
So, I think I just wanted to have this conversation and go, all of these arguments that people keep throwing at us in the comment section on Twitter about average price of a new car is $40,000. It's only average because it is the median.
Yeah.
It's not the modal price. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you. I hope I said that correct. Very nice of you for your wonderful donation there to Transport Evolved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I believe that is Swedish krona. So thank you. Pratchett is king. His books are so great. They are very funny. It's very particular sense of humor that you have to know. And having met Terry Pratchett in real life, he was like that in real life also.
Yeah, he was.
In fact, I think that was one of the first things that you and I did, Kate, when we were early on in our friendship. A bunch of our common friends, that was about 10 of us, all went to Discworld.
Yes, and you lay on top of your car and ruined its roof.
So I was dating someone at the time who lived not too far away from where Discworld was taking place, and you drove up from wherever you were living at the time. I think you were in London or Bristol at the time. You'd driven up, and you had
Probably
your Morris
Bristol.
Minor, and I had my first car, which was not my first real car, which was a Morris Minor. My first car that I drove, which was a company car, and I lay on the roof. I was a lot smaller than I am now, but I still managed to dent it, and I had to pay for it when I handed the car back. So there you go. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody for joining in the chat. If you liked this kind of Zoom conversation, this live conversation, let me know. We might do this again. I think it would be a good way to push forwards. And I think the price of new cars is falling. New electric cars is falling. Electric cars are exploding, not literally. Well, they are in some places, but they are moving in the right direction in terms of prices, right? They're becoming more affordable. And I think we have got to stop letting those with big wallets and loud mouthpieces being gatekeepers for everybody else. And I'm just saying it now, and I'm probably going to make an enemy or two in the process. If you can afford to drop 60 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand, 70 grand or more on a brand new car, then you are not average.
I mean, congratulations.
You're fortunate. You're fortunate.
Yeah.
But you're not average.
No.
And lots of people are who really want to make that switch to electric are not able. Thank you very much, Odbjorn, and thank you, Julius. What lovely names. Also, I do, before we finish, and I hope she doesn't mind, I would like to make a shout out for Sherelle Drives. We've been discussing on Twitter some stuff, and I want to make a big shout out, and I want all of you watching this, because we could get 20, 30,000 people watching this, hopefully. Some of our big videos go even to 100,000. I want you to share this. So Sherelle is looking for an EV to drive, a plug-in vehicle, but ideally an EV. It needs to be a van. She lives in Southern California, and a family member has just been diagnosed with ALS. I don't know if it's just been diagnosed, but has ALS. And that means that they are going to need to be in a wheelchair. And so Sherelle is looking for a vehicle that can be upgraded from their current ride that allows for a wheelchair to be in it. Now, we want to do a video on this at some point. The number of choices are so slim in the United States. There are no electric vans or electric minivans, and the only thing we can come up with right now is a Pacifica hybrid. Trying to find a Pacifica hybrid that is the right price for them and is the right spec for them is proving a real challenge. So I'm asking you guys to help out. If you know of, if you want to help, please reach out to them on Twitter. They have a Twitter account, and I would love you guys to help them find a new vehicle that fits. ALS is a terrible, terrible condition. I personally have known several people with ALS, and it is debilitating. Someone was asking about the Nissan Leaf van that doesn't exist in the US. I think you're talking about the ENV 100. But please, 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 if you can help, do.
What's her Twitter name one more time?
She is, I think Sherelle Drives is what her Twitter handle is. Let me double check that, because I've been chatting with her over the last couple of weeks.
That was actually the
Um,
Pacifica was actually a vehicle that I was recommended to look at when I was still hunting for a vehicle, and I remember looking at it and seeing how few there were.
mhm.
Not many
Yeah.
at all. And
Yeah.
so getting something that is that, specific spec that you're looking for is going to be,
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
finding one that has been converted to a wheelchair van status,
Yeah.
that is the tough one.
Mhm.
Trying to find a vehicle that actually meets that requirement is going to be quite hard. But I
Yeah.
think for someone who is willing to find a Sherelle Wyatt, I hope she doesn't mind me putting that in the stream.
But this
Follow her on
directly
Twitter.
this directly links to what we're talking about. This
Yeah,
is,
it
you
does.
It's accessibility, yeah.
Yeah, accessibility, and it's also about making sure that everybody is able to drive the car they want. I'm just showing that now. She's actually responded in Twitter, so go help. It's in the chat for this. If you're watching this online, go chat in the live chat. I am convinced there must be a car dealer out there. We have lots of car dealers who watch the channel. We have lots of people inside the industry who watch the channel. Help. See if we can help that.
Put some fingers out
happen.
there.
Yeah, because it's really important. It's not just about the flashiest cars that can drive themselves and charge at an incredible rate. And what we have to remember is that it cannot be one company. There was an article in Electric earlier today that said, Tesla is now like 70% of the electric car market. And let me see if I can find it. And 79% of the electric car market in the US. And it needs to change. This is true.
I do want to say this really quick. I have noticed in my own neighborhood an influx of Bolts, actually. I've noticed, like, when I do go out and run errands, I've noticed many more on the road. And so, I mean,
I guess they're coming to the end of their first lease period. Or their second. Yeah.
I have just pinned her details in the chat for those who are wanting. I saw her in the chat, and I kind of took advantage of the situation. So let's wrap this up. What have we learned? The average price that everybody quotes of a new car in the United States is, yes, it's an average price, but they never say whether it's mean, modal, or any of the others, right?
Yeah.
Kate found an article in which it actually said the median price, which is the one you get where you do all of those. You get all of the prices. You add it up and you divide it by 2. Every new car in the top 10 list last year, or top 20 list, had a starting price of between $25,000 and $30,000. I think the majority of them did. And that tells you a lot. It tells you that the cars that are selling, 500,000 cars, which in a market where there was 1.5 million F-150s, that's a big deal for one country. That tells you that, okay, people may be buying higher trim models, but they're going for affordability. And that is why the Leaf, the Bolt, in Europe, the MG, they're all important cars, and we've got to stop pooping on them because they don't do 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds.
It doesn't just take one.
Yeah, it takes a whole extra second to get 60 in the Bolt. I mean,
Oh, darn.
Do you notice? Do you really notice?
Well, I haven't spent a lot of time behind the wheel of a Model 3, so no, I don't. I can honestly say I don't.
And additionally, does driving 0 to 60 in 5 seconds affect your daily driving, Kate?
Not commonly, no.
I'm always going 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds all the time. Every day I'm driving. It's so important to me.
Because you have to live with other people on the road who probably can't do 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. I mean, that's the other problem, right? Sorry, I said we were going to finish, but I'm now going to have another mini rant. I know my wife doesn't need this room. it's not important that these cars can do this,
It's the
because
focus
every other
on-
car on the road is
Yeah.
it's generally slower. And what's more, pretty much every electric vehicle on sale today is faster than in a comparable gasoline version. That's where the conversation should stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
focusing on performance is great, but not everyone's looking for a performance vehicle.
No,
Yeah.
you just need to keep up with traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I drove that Model S, the first time I accelerated, it was a little bit exciting, as I was like, oh, hey, you do get close to the cars in front very quickly, don't you?
And I mean, that's another thing that I want to say is, Priuses aren't popular because they can go fast.
Nope.
I mean, they're not again, they're not fully electric, but a lot of people have them because they are affordable.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying it's because they're affordable. And they are, again, it's that, I'm saving so much money, not spending so much on gas,
Yeah, and people can make that.
No, go on.
People can make that thing. So if you go, you won't pay on gas, you won't spend money on gas. People go, okay, I get that I don't need to buy gas anymore. I can do that. Or in the case of a hybrid, your gas bill is going to be reduced. People again go, that's an immediate change, right? They can immediately make that that decision, right? I will live with a car that sounds like it's going to explode when I put the foot on the go pedal, because it's so sipping gas, Nobody buys a Prius for the sound its engine makes. It sounds insane whenever you accelerate. And I say that as someone who's owned 3 Prii. Kate, you've owned a Prius and a Honda Insight.
Yeah. To be fair, the Prius did use approximately the same amount of oil as it did petrol at 250,000 miles on the clock when we got it.
I think most cars do at that point.
But, it's, you got a charge out of this channel. Thank you. That was so sweet. Shayla? I think. I probably said it wrong. I'm sorry. But yeah, the disconnect is that the majority of these videos are not being watched by regular people. No disrespect to regular people who are watching it, because there's no such thing as a regular person. But most people watching this are people who are at the higher end of the market, who are throwing money, making it rain.
I mean,
comparatively speaking.
Yeah. Here's another thing, another little anecdote. I was actually talking to my neighbor who I went to after my car got stolen, and, he knew about it and saw that I got the Volt and was like, that's a really good looking car. He's in an ICE vehicle right now, and it's not his favorite, and he's been looking to get something. And him and his wife actually just they had a Tesla for like a weekend to go try it out, see if they liked it. They went up to Seattle, and Nikki, I think actually both of you are going to know about the stretch of road that I'm going to be mentioning here, is that bit from Portland to Olympia, where there's it's a desert.
Yeah.
And fortunately they were in a Tesla, and they're like, well, we started getting a little nervous, but fortunately that car can go all that way. But they were like, well, finding the charger was kind of a thing. And these are average people. These are not in the sphere. So going from an ICE vehicle to that car is going to be a bit of a shock. And it's a lot different. And so when I said hey, I've got this car, it looks like a normal car, and you can still plug it in and save a lot of money on gas, and he was like, it seemed a lot more approachable to him, and he even got, again, that was a Tesla he was trying out, and he was like, I like the one that you're riding right now. So I'm not
because
saying
people don't need that.
No, they don't always need, a performance vehicle. And it's always, the focus is always on performance. We need to focus on other areas, because we're isolating the market by just focusing on fast and better, fast and better.
Yep. And maybe it's just a thing that's happened over time. So a couple of years ago, whenever Apple came out with a new iPhone, I was there. Whenever Apple came out with a new gadget, I was there.
Yeah.
This phone is like 3 or 4 years old now. It still meets my needs. Like Apple comes out with a new phone and I go, how much? I'm not doing that. The only reason why I recently bought a new Apple Watch. The only reason why I bought this was because I fell and cracked the screen on my old one. And I'm regularly out in the garden without my phone. So that means I can, still be contacted. And this has got extra heart monitoring functionality that the previous one didn't. So I bought it because it had features that I decided were valuable, and I'd been saving up some money. So I did it. But again, most people don't have that functionality. Most people don't have that, if you're choosing between, do I buy some food, extra food for the week, or do I spend an extra $80 a month, which somebody told me earlier on was not much money, on I'm sorry, if you think that $80 is not a lot of money every month, you have clearly never lived where a lot of people live today.
Yeah.
And those are the people that benefit most from EVs because they're not having to spend a lot of money on repairing them. Those are the people who benefit most from EVs because they don't have to have fuel prices. I mean, hands up, who is relieved right now that they are in a position where the petroleum refineries in Texas shutting down because of the Arctic polar vortex is not going to affect you. Everybody else who drives a gas car is going to have gas prices go up because all of these oil refineries in Texas have had to close, which is going to push the price of gasoline up. I think we've hammered the issue here. People are going to call us socialists next. There are worse things to be called. Let's just leave it at that. That's it for today. As always, thanks to everybody who makes these videos possible. Special thanks to our $15 to $49 a month patrons. There's also also thanks to John Lyons, Raging Fellows, Jeffrey Songster, Anonymous Freak, who's in the chat room, Paul Conway, Laura Sandburn, Anthony Coates, and Tesla in the Gong. They are our $50 a month Patreon supporters. And as always, thank you very much to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, Marcel Ward, JP Fagerback, Sean Ueda, Will Graylin, and Ian. And I bet, Erin, you are very, very, very grateful to the wonderful Reggie Watts, who is also one of our $100 a month Patreon supporters. You can join all of these amazing people by following the links that we'll be putting down in the bottom of this video. In a second, there is a link to Ko-fi as well as Bitcoin. People are worried about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. Yes, they are not great for the planet. We do have a Bitcoin wallet because in the early days, people asked us to have one. And we have a server that has to stay on that is connected to the company, and our Bitcoin wallet lives there. We're not hosting mining operations or anything like that.
Oh, God,
so
no.
we're keeping that.
No.
Thanks to everybody who donated in this chat today. You rock, you are amazing, and you are amazingly beautiful and wonderful. And don't forget also, if you want to carry on this conversation, head over to our Discord channel. We now have a couple hundred people, I think, in the Discord channel. I've kind of lost track. Go and join the Discord channel. If you want to apply to be our social media manager, you have this many days left, this many days left. No, this many days left.
Yep.
It's going down very rapidly.
So,
right before our eyes.
So please sign up. You can go to transportevolve.com and see that there. And don't forget the swag store. Erin's going to come up with some new ideas for swag. She's been busy working on some new animations for us. So she hasn't been doing a lot lately in the main sort of Transport Evolved stuff because she's been busy with side projects for other people. But she's going to be working on some new merch. We've got some ideas.
Spreading the good word of the EV.
Yes, actually. And I think people want to see more of you in front of a camera, Erin, as well. So that's going to have to happen.
I do not mind at all.
She's gone from please don't put me in front of a camera to which is wonderful. And Kate has gone from, I'm not sure about this, to I can stand and talk in front of the camera. So I've managed to drag you both kicking and screaming into
I
the
would
modern
high five
age.
you, Kate, but we don't.
Yeah.
Look up.
Virtual. All right. Also, apparently, the cat now has fans.
The cat?
The cat?
Look behind you.
Oh, that's Luca. That's Luca. He's our elderly cat. He's unfortunately, before I had him in the house, he's not mine. But before I came to be in his presence, he was declawed. So not very friendly, but he is probably the sweetest cat I have ever had in my home.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Well, cat.
Apparently you used to be very shy.
Me?
Nah. Off screen, yes. No, she's not shy. On screen, yes, she used to be shy. Off screen, Erin has never been shy. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. This is our only video for today. So thanks for joining me. And as always, thanks to Kate and thanks to Erin. And thanks to you guys. Don't forget to help Cheryl out. Keep evolving.